I am trusting that you will know if this video is for you. If you have been called to show up in a bigger, bolder way online, you are like, okay, I have been honing my skills, my service, my craft behind the scenes. I have been changing people's lives, and enough is enough. I am now just hiding at this point because I'm really damn good at what I do, and I need more people to know that. I am sick of hiding behind overly engineered graphics and perfectionism in my content. I am sick of overthinking things and dialing down my message, editing myself as I go. There is this sense that like a whole bunch of power is just like bubbling onto the surface and it is ready to explode. And yet when you go to create content, when you go to create anything for your brand, for your messaging, marketing, whatever that may be, it's like, why am I still bound? Why can I not just unleash myself on the world? Why can't I just be me online? So if any of that has resonated, hi, you're in the right place at the right time. We are going to talk about what it takes to break through these barriers, to become unleashed, unbridled. It's one of my favorite words. I also want to talk about why you are potentially reducing this problem to something smaller than it actually is. And if you are in a position of beating yourself up, being frustrated with yourself, being like, I have been doing the work for years. Like I've done the inner work. Like I know my blocks. Why the hell can't I just get it together? Like why am I making this so difficult for myself? We need to start here because it is a bigger deal than you think. This is not just about you being a bit more authentic or you speaking your truth or whatever that may be. What it is that you're asking of yourself, or what you maybe feel like you're being asked to do, is to claim all of the parts of you that you have been hiding behind the scenes. You are trying to hone this message that is so close to your heart, that means so much to you that you could just melt in a puddle when you allow yourself to be washed over by it. And then you're having to face all of the fears and the wounds and all of the stuff that you learned from when you were younger about where you were not safe to be yourself, all of the ways you were taught that you're not valuable for who you really are and that you actually need to be somebody else in order to be accepted and welcomed and safe. You are working through all of that. You are reclaiming your power when you decide that it's time to show up online and be unapologetically yourself. Like, can you just let that sink in for a second? This is a big deal. And I'm really excited for you because you are ready. You are, even though it feels like maybe I'm not, because like if I was truly ready, why wouldn't I just be doing the thing? No, we're going to work through this together. I've got notes. So if you see me looking down, it's because I came prepared, but I want you to first just take a moment to be like, okay, like, whew, this is a big deal. And I am not at the beginning of this journey. Like I'm betting if this is resonating with you at this point, like this is not your first rodeo. You did not wake up yesterday and decide that this was a thing that you wanted to do. Part of the frustration is how long you've been at it, how long you've been doing the inner work, and how long you've been honing your skills, your craft, your area of service. You are so much further along this journey than you might think. You are so close to cracking it, to breaking through. But part of the process of you making that breakthrough is just really seeing this as like a bigger deal than maybe you've been seeing it so far. Does that make sense? So I have coached a lot of people through this process, but there was one client in particular that was very challenging to work with. Can you guess who it was? It was me. About 4 years ago, I did this massive rebrand, and I thought that this was going to be like the moment where I took the lid off my potential, where it was like, okay, I am claiming my value and my brilliance in the world. I'm going to start showing up in a whole new way. Like I've got the sexy brand. It represents who I am. Watch out, world. And then crickets. Not so much crickets from the outside world, crickets from me. Suddenly I'm just here going, oh God, like, wait, hang on. How do I actually do this? where am I actually going with this? What am I trying to say? Why can't I say? And I put so much pressure on myself. It was a non-starter. And for the last 4 years, I have gone on this quest to figure out what is it that I was so desperate to express that felt like it wasn't being expressed before, and how can I actually get to this point where it is possible for me to sit down and turn on the camera and be me. And it has required me to go to the darkest places that I have ever been in myself, like full underworld and back journey. Although I would say I'd been to the underworld like multiple times, or maybe I never really left it. I don't know. Maybe I'm re-emerging now. Talk about content inception. Even yesterday, I was recording a video that brought up more stuff that had me like lying on the floor, about to burst into tears, about to beat myself up. Like, why the hell can't you just get it together? The reason I'm sharing that story is I want you to understand that I know this challenge intimately. I'm not one of those coaches who sits there and is like, oh, just fix your mindset, or just do the thing. Like, it's not that difficult. Just hold yourself accountable, or I'll hold you accountable. This is deeper than that. And I think you know that, or you wouldn't be watching this video right now. For the people who are feeling really called to build a personal brand or launch a business or whatever that may be, it is never just about, oh, just get your messaging together and just get some nice photos and put yourself out there. This tends to get people to go to some dark places first, to realize just how many fears they have under the surface about coming out and sharing the real them with the world. Fear of rejection, shame, like worry that people will find out you're a fraud, worry that you'll let people down, or people will call you out, that you'll be vilified, that people will say that they disagree with you or that you got something wrong. I've lost count of all of the different fears that have come up over the years as I've been coaching people. And it's just such an important thing to know that if you choose to really go on this journey of being someone who is going to show up, and I keep saying online, but just showing up anywhere and being visible, being of service in public, you are going to have to eventually face that stuff that is holding you back, because you cannot actually show up and make the biggest impact if you are holding parts of you back. And if under the surface, there are all these little voices going, oh, just you wait till they find out. But now let's just dive into the how, because I know that's what you're really waiting for. It's like, yeah, great. This is all really relatable, but like, do you have anything to help me with? Yes, I'm here. Don't worry. So we need to talk about the 3 sacred thresholds that you are going to need to cross in order to claim your boon, the gifts that you're here to share with the world, and actually be able to reach that wider audience with whatever it is that you are doing. The first sacred threshold is Gnosis. It's about trusting in what you actually already know. One of the first places that we get very conditioned in this space, and I'll keep referring to the online space, but you can obviously translate it to offline as well. But I know for me, the more years that I was self-employed, working online, consuming content online, taking courses, signing up for programs, listening to podcasts, I started to really get conditioned into this idea that there is a way that it's supposed to be done, that there is a right way to market yourself, that every piece of content must have a sexy hook and it has to have a call to action, and this is good content and this is bad content and all of that. And what happened to me very early on, like when I launched my very first online course back in, when was it? I think it was 2019. And I took Amy Porterfield's online course academy, not slamming it. This is a neutral story. But what happened is, because I did not trust myself in that process, which is normal, I was new to it. Sometimes these things can be really helpful to us early on in the journey when we don't know any better. However, the big issue that I have is that when we're handed templates and told to fill in the blanks, and we're told that this is the right way to launch something, this is the right way to market yourself, we never bring our internal knowing online. And for me personally, that experience really showed me just how much I was cutting myself off from my own creativity, from my own knowing of my audience. And I was really just like falling into this trap of becoming a little parrot. And I'm betting, if you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you're further along in the journey now than I was at that point. But it's just amazing how deeply ingrained a lot of these concepts are. Like, we really have been sold this lie that there is a right way and a wrong way to communicate, to create messaging, to sell an offering. And it's just not true. There are timeless fundamentals, which I'll save for other content. But other than that, there is you and then there's your audience. And guess who knows your audience better than anybody else other than themselves? It's you, not the person who's teaching you marketing, not the person who's handing you this template. And so the first sacred threshold, like I said, that we need to cross is realizing that there is nothing more valuable than our own inner knowing when it comes to us being able to reach the people that we want to reach. Knowing of ourselves and our own gifts and the natural ways that we communicate, really knowing I'm someone who's better with a script or not with a script right now. I am best when I'm on camera. I am best when I sit down and write something first. Like there's knowing of the self. And then there is the knowing of what it is, like the transformation that you are here to facilitate. And related to that, there's the knowing of the person who's on the other side of that and trusting that, especially in this day and age. I'm recording this in 2026 and things are constantly changing at the moment. It feels like a lot of evolution is happening in the online space. Algorithms keep changing, but nothing is more important than knowing that your person on the other side of this piece of content is a human being. And as long as you can connect with them in some way and make sure that whatever it is that you're sharing is designed for them, can be supportive of their journey, the way you share that message, like there's so many ways. It's like there are infinite ways you could reach them. And also part of it is about experimentation. When you trust your own knowing, you're prepared to experiment. You're prepared to try things and to not worry so much if it doesn't seem like it worked, because it's all data. It's all just information, feedback. So if we can tune into the fact that, okay, well, I know myself, I know the person I'm trying to serve, and I know what it is that I need to be talking about, what it is that I'm selling, that I'm offering. Can I trust that it's safe for me to actually use some intuition and some creativity in how I'm going to get this message across and not cut myself off from that by thinking in terms of black and white, right way to market myself, wrong way to market myself? All of the rules that exist right now were made after the fact, after someone experimented at some point and people were pattern spotting and going, oh, this has been working really well. Okay, well, let's say that this is a rule of marketing. But those rules were created in much earlier times where people were operating differently. So you also need to trust that like things will evolve and what used to work doesn't necessarily work today. So don't trust anyone. Trust yourself and trust the feedback as you're sharing. Learn from it. I think you get the point. Quick little practical challenge, homework item for you to start putting this into practice, because I want this to be practical. I want all my content to be practical. I don't want to just feed you information with a fire hose and then have you still keep sitting there being like, okay, that's great in theory, but like, what do I do with this? So I want you to write down 5 things that get under your skin about your industry, that frustrate you when you see your clients struggling with it. Anything that is really close to your heart that is like, oh, if there were no consequences and I wasn't scared of what people would say if I shared this, I would be sharing this yesterday. Write 5 things down. And then I want you to set a challenge of seeing how in the next week or so, how could you just share them in any way you can? Like throw out the strategy, throw out the idea that they need to be attached to you selling something, that they have to make perfect sense, that they have to be executed perfectly. Can you just commit to sharing them anyway? And like, yeah, one person might hear it, but what if that person heard it and it really landed for them and it made a difference? Sometimes also there is this buildup. If we've been holding back on the thing that we really want to talk about for a long time, like we can start to put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get it right when we finally share it. But what if you intentionally share these in really messy, imperfect ways, knowing you're going to share them again, you're going to share them better next time? You know, the bad pancake rule, like where there's always has to be a bad pancake that comes out first. That's essentially what I had to commit to this week with my YouTube videos, like with this relaunch of the channel and my podcast. I was like, okay, what's the first one I'm going to record that I'm going to allow to be a bad pancake, just so that I can take some of that pressure off myself. Anyway, we've got 2 more thresholds that we need to cross. So hopefully this one's making sense. Gnosis. trusting what you already know is the first threshold. The second threshold is the Bardo. It's about the discomfort of the in-between, where there is this way that you have been showing up online previously, and there is this thing that you're stepping into that is probably going to look quite different, feel quite different. Right now, you are here in between these two worlds, knowing that you've outgrown that, but you haven't fully stepped into this. It's really important to know that this journey you're going on right now, this is identity level change. For you to be showing up in a whole different way, it's a whole different you that you're becoming in order to do this. And it can be really in between when you're like, but I'm not that old person, but who actually am I? And we can then start to really cling on to needing labels and structure and strategy and things that make us feel more certain and clear in this time to get through. But I have found that this is one of the things that slows me down the most. I've been at year-long standstills before because I was waiting to get to this point where the strategy made perfect sense to me and I thought I had everything aligned just perfectly ready for my relaunch. But because that moment never came, because I hadn't actually started sharing, the strategy kept feeling really loosey-goosey and unclear. And I was like, oh shit, I'm holding myself back at this point. So it's really important that even though you're holding this vision that is really exciting about the way that you could be showing up and what that involves, and it can feel like you should therefore be doing something really drastic in order to get yourself there, and I shouldn't really be showing up until I'm clear on how I'm going to get to that point. It's important to remember that you got to this point in time without some perfect strategy. It might have involved some strategy at a point in time, but if I asked you to go back in time 10 years, as in I'm speaking to past you 10 years ago and saying, okay, 10 years time, you were in this exact position that you are right now. Give me the exact steps that you're going to take to guarantee that you get to that point in time where you have all of these things in place. Do you think past you could actually do that? There is a chance they might get some of the things right, but let's be real. So much of what got you here was stuff that was out of your control. It involved you showing up and doing the thing, not really knowing what you were doing. And then the right people came into place, opportunities arose, ideas came to you, you refined things, you experimented, and here you are today. That is how you're going to get to the next phase. You can absolutely often speed things up by being really clear on your vision, having really clear intentions and making sure you're holding yourself to the values that future vision really encapsulate, living as your future self now. But in terms of strategy and exact steps and having everything perfectly in place, no, that's not going to happen. So the second threshold we cross, this Bardo, is really about surrender. It's about allowing yourself to be in the mess. And the scariest and hardest part, showing up within that mess, showing up in the messiness, showing up in the not knowing, taking steps, not being able to guarantee that they're the right steps, but knowing that there are no right steps if there's no perfect strategy and there's no guarantee. There's just me having this vision, having a North Star, and messily taking step after step and trusting that I will be able to keep micro adjusting my course, making those little pivots along the way. I mean, you've heard about the thing where to get to the moon, they're actually having to make constant little micro adjustments in the course. Otherwise they would miss the moon. So if something as exact to science as, what do we call it? Probably literal rocket science. If rocket science can't set one course for the moon and guarantee that that is the correct course that will get them there, because of course there are all these other factors at play, then how do you expect to be able to control your way to this next version of yourself? In terms of practical steps with this, I'll just give you one example that might just spark some inspiration for you. I had so many false starts over the last 4 years. I went to start so many different new platforms, wasted a lot of time. But one of the things that did work really well is that I realized that I'm not fully formed yet. I still don't necessarily feel safe to really step into the way that I want to be sharing on my existing platforms, because it felt a bit scary. People had known me for how I was showing up previously. They had certain expectations. It's probably mostly in my head, but that's the thing. If it's in your head, if there is some fear there, honor that. And so one of the imperfect steps that I took to help get me to this place where I am now, able to sit down and record and talk in the way I want to talk and feel feel real, feel authentic and unapologetic is that I actually launched a Substack during that time, a Substack that wasn't to do with long-term strategy for me. That was just like, I need an in-between. I need a platform that feels safe for me to experiment, for me to start sharing in a whole new way where I don't have lots of eyes on me. And I'm just gonna not worry if I don't follow through on this. I won't follow through on this. Like, I didn't have to justify it to myself in terms of strategy. I just felt called to doing this and I did it. And sure enough, I can't remember how many times I published there. It wasn't a lot, but publishing there was such a healing experience for me because it allowed me to open up a whole new way of expressing myself that now is being fully integrated into what it is that I'm doing. Like, I can now be on my main platforms and talk in the way I want to talk, but I needed a stepping stone in order to get there. So that is the Bardo. Speaking of stepping stones and what is actually being called to be expressed, we're now at the third threshold, which is the Starborn. By the way, if you're wondering where I got these words from, they're from Kim Kranz's Archetypes deck, like one of my favorite tools that I use. And often when I'm brainstorming content, I will actually pull cards that inspire me. So the Starborn is about us going backwards to go forwards. We've got this vision for the future. And I think where we can also get stuck is that we think that there are all these new aspects of ourselves that we have to find outside of ourselves. And then we become this new person. So, okay, well, I'm going to need the new brand and I'm going to have to become a better this. But the real thing that we are craving on this journey to authentic, unbridled expression, it's to express the parts of us that haven't been given a voice, a platform yet. The parts of us that we locked away because we learned that those were less convenient to the outside world for us to embody. And so the Starborn is your original self, your most innocent self, the you were before all of the conditioning, before you learned to lock certain parts away, before you put on certain masks. Oh, people prefer it when I'm wearing this mask. Like for me, being someone who was naturally very shy and quiet, but then getting into competitive dancing, I learned very quickly. I mean, it was literally screamed into me that like I had to get outgoing. I had to learn how to smile and be high energy and speak louder. And I developed this performing version of myself from when I was about 10 years old that has carried me into the rest of my life. Now, do I resent it? No, because it helped give me part of what I need to be able to show up here with you right now and to be able to have that energy that kind of connects on camera and all of those things. But I, 4 years ago and over this, this last journey that I've been on, had started to feel really resentful and sad that people didn't see all of me. Like it felt very surface level for me to just stay in this mode all the time. And there were all these things that I wasn't talking about, interest and thoughts and perspectives, and also this much more gentle side to me, this softer side that was very intuitive and into things that are a bit more mystical or somatic. And none of those had a space to be expressed. And that was making me sad and mostly just resentful, bitter. I was like, I'm sick of only being valued for this one version of myself. But the resentment and that frustration came first before the awareness of why I was even resentful and frustrated. I just knew that I had to be expressing myself in a different way, but I didn't know what actually wanted to come out. Who was the new me? I was so determined to be like, okay, there's a whole new me coming out, but like, who is she? So the Starborn gets us to return to our truest version of ourselves and think in those first, especially like 7 years of your life. How did you see the world? What were you dreaming about? What brought you joy? How did you naturally express yourself before you were socialized to express a different way? What were the activities you were drawn to? What was the kind of music you listened to? What books were you reading or movies were you watching? What were the games that you played? What were you saying that you were going to be when you grew up? Starting here gives us a lot of clues as to the parts of us that were not being expressed. And then, I mean, for me, I also just had to look at like, what am I keeping behind closed doors? What are all the passions and the interests that I have that I am kind of into in secret or only will tell like my closest friend about? Like I started getting into human design and the gene keys and astrology and all these different topics, energy healing. And I was like, oh my God, like if I finally come out and start talking about this, people are going to be like, what the hell? But you're the branding expert. Like, how does that fit in? It felt like such a huge divide between who I was behind the scenes and who I was out there. And so I want you to really think about, what are the things that you feel like are only safe to be enjoyed behind the scenes? What feels inappropriate for you to share publicly? Now, this is not me saying encroach on your own boundaries and start oversharing. I'm not saying be vulnerable and put yourself in a dangerous position of telling people all about your personal life. It's like, what are the things that really bring you joy, that are an important part of you and your values and how you see the world? What's being excluded right now from how you're showing up online? Could also be the way that you're communicating. I have a client who realized that her original state was being a poet. And so she went from creating this content that was very informative and felt very teachery to really just showing up in real time and being so much flowier and sharing poetry and just sharing her unfiltered thoughts. And the actual content of what she was sharing, like the point was still the same, but the delivery was what changed. And it was allowing herself to claim that desire of like wanting to be able to just show up in a much softer way that allowed her to then start experimenting more with her content and to have those breakthroughs. So for you, what are you hiding? What parts of you have you exiled, and who is asking to be brought online? And hopefully at this point, you're seeing why, again, if you've been struggling to just sit down and hit record, there's a lot more to it than what you've maybe been giving yourself credit for. Just a bonus contemplation you can do. So if you are familiar with the Gene Keys, genekeys.com, I'll include a link so that you can set up a free profile. The place that I love people to contemplate when they're thinking about the Starborn is their SQ sphere. I actually call this the cave in my Mythic Journey offering, because essentially this is like the part of you, like the deepest, darkest part of you that contains that original spark, that pure essence of you, but where you have rolled across the cave door and you've been hiding that spark from the world because it was the most vulnerable version of you that contained that. And so there are all these layers and these shields and these masks and things that have just been keeping it safe and hidden. But when we go and claim that spark, that is the final step that we have before we face the dragon in our hero's journey and they get to claim the boon and then return home to the kingdom. Like, it is essential that we reclaim this part of us before we start to embody our gifts and are ready to share them in a meaningful way with the world. So it's a journey into the underworld and back, like I said. So if you want to contemplate that on your own, I'll include the link. If you want to go on that journey with me, I'll include details on how you can do that. So I'm hoping at this point in the video, it's become clear that even though we have not been talking much about strategy through the lens of marketing and sales and positioning and all of those kinds of things, conversion tactics, I hope that you will see that what we're talking about here is a different kind of strategy. But I have found that when I work with clients and they do this work, this strategy level work, which is really the identity level strategy, so often something unlocks in them, and I will wake up one day, log onto Instagram and see them showing in a whole different way, or I'll see that they've posted their first post on LinkedIn and I'm like, hang on, what happened? And it turns out that this was the strategy that they needed the most help with. These were the thresholds that were the hardest for them to cross. Once they crossed them, it's like something came online and then they went off and they were all self-sufficient and they didn't even run their new strategies by me, as in they didn't need me to review their content anymore. They didn't need me to validate the thing that they were about to put out there in the world. Whereas before someone does that work, like I've had clients who have been resistant to doing the identity level work, they're the ones who every single week come to me and go, is this piece of content okay? Oh, I'm not sure if it's right. And they're in their heads about it and it's content that is not embodied. So I'm sharing this not to say that the other kind of strategy is not important at all. To be completely honest, the biggest challenge that I've noticed some clients will have is related to what I was saying about conditioning. Like, if you have been conditioned to believe that marketing and sales is manipulative, evil, or you really are stuck in the idea that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If you have any sort of wounding around, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not a good writer, or I'm not a good communicator, this is where our strategy in the traditional sense can kind of get distorted. Also, if you just never had the education on what is messaging, what is marketing, like what is it actually about? What do I actually need to communicate? Like that could be missing too. So there is a time and place for education on that kind of strategy. strategy. And I will absolutely be creating content on that in future on the channel. So please, if you are interested in more of whatever it is that I'm sharing, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you hear about future ones, and leave me a comment. I'd love to know what actually landed with you and what questions you have, which will help inspire whatever I'm creating in the future. But I'm going to stop now. This has been a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.